Welcome to Senior Views, a show that speaks to the beauty and empowerment of being a senior in the 21st century. We are living stronger, longer, healthier, more productive, informationally educated lives. Anything, and I mean anything you want, need, or think, or are curious about, you can find it on your phone. Your children and grandchildren are living in a world foreign to you. It's a continual, unrelenting learning wave that changes on the regular. The upside is you have choices like you've never had before. On Twitter, or you can follow on Facebook, or you can pick a comfy chair and watch it all go by on Instagram or TikTok. As I said before, we are dealing with what's hip, what's hot, and what's happening, and today's show is aging in sports. So let me pose this question to you. How long is too long to be on the rink or in the ring? When is the age to walk away? What age do you slow down? Even the most celebrated athletes punch past their professional prime to feed ego and finances. To answer all those athletic questions, we have a round table that I'm sure you're going to be impressed with. We have Kevin Shea, a celebrated PR music professional. Oh, that's a whole other show we're going to do with Kevin, I'm sure. Who then went on to author or co-author 19 books on hockey. And the most recent is Voices in Blue and White, Price and Passion for the Maple Leafs. And because he can't just do one thing, he's now the editorial and education felicitator for the Hockey Hall of Fame. And best of all, he's from Windsor. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, thanks very much for having us here. When you talked about seniors in sports, I knew my name would come up first. But anyway, that's another story too.
And in this corner, we have the Superintendent of Student Success and Equity. We have the heavyweight feared by students and boxers in training alike, Mr. Josh Canty.
Hey, that's a super middleweight. I'm not a heavyweight yet. Lori, thank you for having me. I'm so proud to be here. And just a quick one. Lori's my former boss. She used to be my boss. We were on Drouillard Place, helping kids in the community get connected to things. So it's great to be here and to support. Glad to be here, Lori. Thank you.
Thank you. See, and I'm still telling him what to do. And his partner and all that is athletic is the creator of the Coming Home Techno Festival, former owner of the Boom Boom Room, and currently launching Turbo Cafe with 2 knockout locations, one on Olette Avenue and the newest at Devonshire Mall, with a liquor license, Kevin, a liquor license in Devonshire Mall. And he is also the volunteer that works with seniors at Border City Boxing, and that is Ronaldo Augustine.
Ronaldo!
Listen, I'm a Leafs fan. I bleed blue. But I'm wondering, the blue and white Leafs book that just came out, does that come with crayons?
That's how it was written.
Do we get crayons with that book?
And to make the medical sense of all of this is Christina Rapaz Rindelsbacher. Christina is a geriatrician who works at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto. She received her medical degree from the University of Toronto, completed her internal medicine residency at McMaster and her fellowship in geriatric medicine at the University of Toronto, on her way to becoming and completing a PhD in clinical entomology at the University of Toronto. Thank you for coming here today. We appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start with seniors who stay active above and beyond recommended levels may perform an important social role as they can alter societal expectations of what it means to grow old. Across the board, agree or disagree?
I agree.
I think it's complicated.
Can you tell me why?
Well, because I think there are certain sports where it's dangerous to get in there. We've seen this with the great Muhammad Ali. We saw it a couple weeks ago with Evander Holyfield getting into the ring at 58 years old. It's just dangerous. And sometimes you have to realize you have to pass the torch to the people that are younger than you. And you have to make accommodations for yourself and for your life so that you're not putting yourself in danger.
I can't agree anymore, Josh. That's absolutely true. I see it in the hockey world over and over and over again. Everybody wants to retire on their own terms, but that so seldom happens. And you see guys pushing themselves beyond when the younger crop of players coming up who've been training 12 months a year, taking maybe a week or two off, and that's it, are pushing and pushing and pushing. And the guys are hanging on. And all of a sudden they find that they've lost a step. And in doing so, that's when injuries occur. That's when, the drastic idea of, you don't get to retire on your own terms. Somebody else tells you when you have to retire. And so these are things that play into it as well. So Josh, I totally agree with you. There's a yin and a yang to this whole question.
Well, there's certainly a yin and yang to the question, but I think what we're talking about here is not necessarily professional sports. I think we're talking about athletics in general. I play in a hockey league on Sundays in Harrow with guys that are in their 70s and 80s. And we've been playing in this, these guys have been playing in this league for 30 or 40 years. I'm not sure. I think some of these guys actually live because they still get to play in this league. Not to mention, the number one thing I hear in the dressing room every weekend when they get there is that to have a couple hours away from their family and their wives to hang out with their boys. But it means everything to them. It's true. We had to take last year off, obviously, because of COVID, but we're back this year, and the guys are just so happy to see each other and so happy to be together. And I think that sense of community, surely none of these guys expect to be playing above the level that they can play in. And luckily for me, I play on that level of the 70 and 80-year-old man.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Ronaldo and also give a bit of a cop-out answer. If it depends. I mean, I think if we're talking about aerobic exercise that's low impact, not maybe not necessarily boxing, which might be a bit dangerous as one ages, depending on how you're doing it. But I mean, the aerobic exercise has really important fitness implications, and it's really good for your heart. It's really good for your mobility and fitness and strength. So I would say it just really depends on what we're talking about, what exercise.
Well,
you play to your level. You play to your level. Obviously, a 50-year-old man shouldn't be getting in a boxing with a 38-year-old man, nor should a 50-year-old hockey player, unless it's Jaromir Jagr, shouldn't be getting on the ice with 20-year-old guys. It makes no sense.
Ronaldo, if I might step in for a second too, you touched on something that was really important. Doctor, it's certainly really, really important to continue your fitness level for sure, but there's the camaraderie that's so important for people too. And so, yeah, it's a way for people to stay in shape. It's a great opportunity to be away from family, but there's that bonding that goes on, and we see that in sports over and over again. It's so important. The beers in the dressing room, if I'm playing in the hockey realm, the beers in the dressing room are maybe as important as what happened on the ice a little bit earlier. So these are all really important in continuing on in the sports level too.
I totally agree. Social engagement is so important.
You bet, Doctor. Thank
you. If I could bring up the program, Ronaldo just actually left our gym working with the Rock Steady program. And what it is for years in the boxing club, we were teaching people how to have balance, flexibility, strength, endurance. And what we didn't know years ago is that those are the very things that are being taken away by Father Time and by disease like Parkinson's from people. And if we can work on those things, contact wise, in terms of working on speed and agility, flexibility, strength, we can postpone. We can slow down the effects of these these diseases like Parkinson's that take away the ability for people to pick up their children, to drive a car, to live meaningful lives. And when we saw that, Ronaldo, you can speak to this. We saw that when we had to shut down for a while at Border City, our Rock Steady program as well. We just shut it down. And when people came back, we could see that they took a step back, unfortunately, because they didn't have that tough love and that push and that camaraderie of being together in the gym, fighting not only the disease but fighting together. Ronaldo?
I agree with Josh, and Josh is 100% right. We have so many. Today we had 12 members come to our class, and all of them are definitely over the age of 60. And for them, I think there gets to be a certain point in time in your age where, the couch becomes more attractive and the TV becomes more attractive than going out and doing fitness. And there's just always this thought that you can't do something past a certain age. So most people just kind of give up, and that's when they let themselves go. And there's so much opportunity, whether it's boxing, hockey, basketball. There's every sport you can play as a senior, and now more than ever is accessible to you. And as long as you're staying within your limits, you can really, really improve your physical stature. You can greatly improve your mental stature. But the most important thing is the confidence. You know, we see it in Rocksteady. We see when our athletes come in and begin the program, their biggest fear is falling. You know, their biggest fear is I'm going to fall at home and I'm going to hurt myself. Well, one of the first things we do is we teach them how to fall. You know, we teach them how to roll. We teach them how falling is not a life-ending injury. But
you are going to fall. You are going to fall.
Yeah, in their mind, it is a life-ending injury. You know, in their mind, it is something. I can't fall. If I fall, I'll break something and then I'm done. So I'm just going to sit on the couch and I'm not going to move. You know, and I'm just going to eat Doritos. I'm just going to watch TV. And that becomes a lifestyle that you shouldn't have at any age. But that's all because you lose that confidence in being active. You feel that if you fall, you're going to hurt yourself and seriously injure yourself, and it's going to make things worse. But that's not the case at all, right? Learning how to fall and dealing with falling is the vision that we want our senior athletes to have. And we want them to continue to gain the confidence in doing the little things. Like, you'd be surprised how much hitting a punching bag will help you going up and down the stairs, right? It's all these little things that add up that change your lifestyle. And for them, when they came back from being shut down for a while, I could tell that they were not the same people they were a year before. And, you know, our program, and I'm sure every program, makes a world of a difference. But those are the big things to me that I see.
Christina, you'd like to jump in here and comment on staying active and how much mentally and physically it's important to you.
Sure. And I just wanted to touch on what something that Ronaldo said. I love everything that you just said. I think it's interesting because one of the biggest risk factors for falling is actually a fear of falling. So getting over that fear is actually really important. But sorry, Lori, what was your question? I just wanted to comment on that first. But
going about, Ronaldo made some really good points. I mean, he's talking about, you know, people lose their sense of security as they age, and it's not a financial thing. It's the children are gone. It's the empty nester. You know, they just really lose themselves because a lot of people, their job is their life. You know, their job is what keeps them going when you don't have a job. Or even if you're still working, when you see, you know, the wave of younger people coming in, you know, the insecurities build. So by staying in shape, and not even staying in shape, but by doing activities, it will help you, you know, have a fuller life.
Yes, certainly. And I think it's never too late to be physically active. And obviously there are lots of key benefits that everybody has already touched upon. But I would say that, just to throw this in there, the recommendations from the guidelines are really at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity 5 days a week. That's what's been studied to help older adults. And it's interesting because the moderate intensity just means whatever you perceive to be an exertion of effort. So at the beginning, it might be walking, but you know, as you progress, maybe it becomes something different. So just wanted to throw that in there because I think that's important to discuss.
You know, there's a natural collection of aging, of aches and pains that come with aging, is what I should say. And so you probably have to modify what you can and can't do. And we all, in our mind, and again, I use the hockey lexicon, but we all think we're 18 in our heads, and we're not anymore, and we push ourselves too much. But I was heartened to hear this morning that that the fastest growing sport in the world right now, or at least in North America right now, is pickleball. Well, so it's certainly geared towards anybody, but there's a large commodity of adults who play the game, keeps them active, keeps them engaged, and it gives that that exercise that you mentioned, doctor, as well. So those sorts of things, walking, of course, but little things that you can do when you maybe can't play racquetball or whatever anymore. There are other things that you can do as you reinvent yourself.
Talking about reinventing yourself, a lot of people don't understand that you have to reinvent yourself emotionally more than you have to do physically, because the physically will come if the emotional reinvention comes, or you pivot. Like for a professional athlete, that has got to be the most devastating thing, to come to the realization, I can't play baseball at the level that I did. Or, it's almost sometimes their humiliation is, when they can't play. Go ahead,
Well,
Kevin.
so, if you don't mind, sorry. I work at the Hockey Hall of Fame, but just down the hall from us is the National Hockey League Alumni Association. And so I talked to the president, a guy named Glenn Healy, who played in the National Hockey League as well.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to him, and he just talked about the exponential growth of people needing help as they try and find life after the game, because things go from, the exaltation of being a professional athlete, the money that comes with it, the crowds that come with it, the young ladies or young men that come along with it, all these sorts of things. And all of a sudden, when you can't play anymore and you've lost that, in many cases, they haven't prepared for a life after their sport. And so they are trying to start anew at 35, 40 years old with a modicum of education, not really knowing where to go. They don't have anything but hockey that's been on their resume, or whatever sport it happens to be. And so that's where things ensue, like drugs, alcohol, divorce, depression, et cetera, et cetera. And there's been just a proliferation of those kinds of problems in all sports, but we certainly have seen it in the hockey world with some high level athletes who have either taken their lives or have faced challenges because life after hockey, life after the game, has not been an easy step.
Okay, Kevin, if I can jump in there, we see it in all sports, certainly in our sport, boxing. There is such a drop off, because when you're on that high of doing so well in your sport, it could be any sport or in any walk of life, and then when Father Time comes around and pulls you back to reality, it's difficult for many people, and certainly with we work in the business of Parkinson's now with our Rock Steady program. Like we see people that unfortunately they lose not only their jobs, their livelihood, their relationships, so that there's divorce, complete loss of self-confidence and lust for life, because they can't do what they used to be able to do. And how do we instill in them a passion of life, purpose in life? It's sometimes not possible. We do our very best, but it's difficult for some of these people. And life is debilitating. We all are humbled by life, and for some people that are given gifts young, it's a gift, but it has its consequences. And I may have been successful professionally or athletically, when I was younger, but youth shall be served, and I have to pass the torch at some point, and that's part of oneself, both emotionally and physically, is so important.
So you're right when you said it's not just professional athletes. It's the weekend warriors, the guys that play baseball every Sunday, the guys that the pickup game with Ronaldo. You see every profession. I think golf, you go a little longer. Lifespan is a little bit longer, but still, the swing. Look at even Tiger Woods, the problems with his back and things like that.
Yeah.
But still, being active on any level to keep you going is so important once you start your senior years. I mean, just to have a purpose every day. I always said to my mom, my dad was her job. I mean, and when people are widowed, they don't know what to do. Or divorce, or you're an empty nester. So it almost is like a curtain that falls, that people think.
Well, Lori, even retirement, when people retire, they think that they're going towards this great, change of life, and then wait, what now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through it in my personal life, Josh. My wife retired a week ago Friday, and she looked forward to this. Yeah, there we go, and to her as well, and so she's been looking forward to it for a number of years. She hadn't enjoyed her job the last couple of years, so she's retired now. But now what? She doesn't have hobbies. She's got some friends. She's a Windsor girl as well, but here we are up in Toronto. She's got some friends, but not the same ones that, she had grown up with and she had worked with in previous years. He was a Kennedy alumnus as well.
Okay, there we go.
But trying to reinvent herself, and she's doing it on the fly. I kind of did it as I was going. She's starting now to try and figure out, okay, where are my passions lying and how can I use those to enrich my life? So on a personal level, I know exactly what you're talking about because we have it in our own household.
And now there's so many more opportunities than there's ever been. Like I say, the world is on your phone, and to inspire people to move towards that, and keep moving. That is the whole thing, is to keep moving. Whether, you join something, you create something, the whole point is to just keep moving. I mean, people, into their 70s and 80s, like Josh said, they're going to hockey, they're showing up, even social activities. The most important thing is to just don't look at retirement as the end of the road. Look at it as the beginning of a new road. People said to me, "Oh, the party's over." I'm like, no, it's not. It's just a different party.
You're right. It's not a finish line. When I'm done, and I'm about 5.5. My wife says 7.5 years out of retirement. She doesn't want to leave me home unsupervised. So, but when that happens, do I have a plan for how I'm going to have purpose in my life? Because that's what it's about. It's about purpose, right?
Now, let me ask you, going back to the physical. So if you're older and you decide, okay, I'm going to do something, so I don't get in the ring with Ronaldo. I did it with Josh when I was at Jeweler Place. I still hurt to this day.
I got that liver.
Places I never knew I owned. So what is it, doctor? What is the RX you can give people?
Yeah, so I think having an individualized plan is probably a good idea, because I think everyone sort of enjoys different things and is starting from a different level. So I think it's always individualized to the person, but I think it is important to have some level of aerobic exercise, because we know that has the most benefits in terms of cognition and overall cardiovascular health, so brain health and heart health, essentially. So, there are other things that are really good too, like flexibility and muscle strengthening. That stuff is great too, but whatever the activity plan is, there should be some aerobic component. So that's sort of what I would say.
Physical activity, does that help reduce the risk of specific diseases and conditions?
Yes, it does. I'm an expert in brain health, so I can tell you that there is some reduction in dementia, for example. I think once you're diagnosed with some of these diseases, like that have to do with cardiac health, it can improve, your cardiac conditions. So for example, if you had diabetes, it might prevent you from having a heart attack, stuff like that. But definitely, I would say from my perspective, knowing that I'm an expert in the brain, that's really important. So I think it's interesting that we've been talking about Parkinson's, because that's sort of, there's an issue there with balance and obviously the physical aspects of Parkinson's, but there's also some brain aspects of Parkinson's that I think exercise can really help with. So that's interesting.
So Josh, when the seniors come in to Border City Boxing on Drouillard Road for the Rocksteady program, how long before you see some kind of results when they start?
Great question. And the problem, Lori, is that it is a degenerative disease, and so there's no cure for Parkinson's. What we do see, though, is that people's flexibility and their reaction time and their strength increase, their confidence, and as Ronaldo said, the confidence is so important because they see that they're improving and that they're able to get to their fridge quicker, they're able to get up and down from their chair quicker. They feel more confident about driving or picking up their grandchildren. It's a life improvement. Unfortunately, Rocksteady Boxing is not a cure. What it is, it just delays, postpones, and in some cases, it actually reverses the symptoms. And so the tremors simmer down, their ability to, and just that the belief in self that I'm not going to let this disease be the end of my life. I'm still dad, grandpa, grandma, sister. I'm still able to do the things in life. It's about having people come together because, especially we notice with the men, they feel almost that they're emasculated by the disease. But we're together. We're fighting this together. We're all human. Everybody is inching towards death. However, we can delay that and delay the symptoms of death as long as we can. So that's what we're trying to do.
How many women do you have in your program?
I'd say 6 women and I'd say 14 men. It's mostly men.
Yeah, men have a slightly higher incidence of Parkinson's as well. So that might be why. But I think it's so interesting because there used to be, and I don't know if it's still running post-COVID, but there used to be a National Ballet Canada Parkinson's Society sort of program where they were doing ballet and dance. And so similar, I think it's similarly, it's impacting the confidence and sort of that sense of self just as much as the social part, which is so important.
The women, though, it's funny with the women, Ronaldo, you can attest to this. They never, ever, ever would have thought they would be in a boxing club throwing punches at a boxing day, learning how to do these drills. It just was not on their radar, but they realized the benefits that it brings to their lives and they love it. And the women are often the toughest to get engaged. They'll come and watch a couple classes and they'll think, maybe this isn't for me. Once they do it, they're like, yes, this is for me. And then want to invite their friends. Obviously, for the Parkinson's program, Rock Steady, we only allow people that need it.
Yeah, I think women absolutely love the sport. Everyone's turned off right away by the violence of it, because when you say the word boxing, the first thing that comes to mind is, I don't want to get hit. But then when you realize that there's so many more benefits to the sport without ever having to be touched, that's what really gets them going. And it's a high impact sport that is exciting, exhilarating, and works so many different types of muscles and so much. Like I was saying to one of the ladies today, that once you learn a 4-punch combo and someone bumps into you at the grocery store, you're gonna look at them a lot differently than you used to. You're gonna look at them a lot different than you used to a year ago, right? Once you learn that straight right hand. Yeah, once you learn that straight hand, and it's funny, but it's true. It's funny, but it's true. Yeah. You just once you learn to use your hands in anything, whether it's woodcraft or witchcraft or boxing, once you learn to use your hands, life becomes a little bit different for you. It's pretty cool.
I love that. And Ronaldo, if I can piggyback on that, when you look back at that person, they're still looking at you, it changes things. That confidence where you pick up your grandkid and you jog out and grab something and you're feeling good about, you'll take care of this. It's just that confidence of doing the things you were reluctant to do a week ago.
Yeah.
Now, Kevin, from the NHL perspective, are there any safeguards for retiring hockey players? Is there anything that they provide for them after they've retired?
Sure, there are a number of programs. The National Hockey League Players Association and the NHL alumni both have all kinds of programs set up for, as we spoke a little bit earlier, life after the game, life after hockey. And whether they're for mental health or physical health, whether they're to help somebody through a financial crisis or a divorce, or some of the physical things that happen during the game. So in the case of hockey, it's quite, I wouldn't say celebrated, but it certainly has been prominent that some of the enforcers specifically have suffered concussions that have led to some CTE post their careers. And so trying to get a handle on that is still being researched, but there's all kinds of programs. They've got a really amazing menu for players to choose from. The biggest problem is, and I don't know whether it'd be the same with others, but I can only assume that it would be, is trying to get people to get past their ego, I guess I'll say,
ego,
or their pride or something like
100%,
that.
100%, Kevin. That's
right,
it.
To raise their hand and say, look, I need some help.
No,
here they
are.
I'm
a real man. I'm a real man.
Exactly.
I don't need that.
A celebrated athlete who all of a sudden feels that they've been emasculated, as you mentioned earlier, Josh, because they now have to ask for help of some sort. And so it's trying to get people to do that so they don't fall into the abyss of severe depression, alcoholism, drug dependency, or whatever.
Yeah,
Well said, Kevin. Well said.
and that's prevalent in any sport, and it's prevalent in any society. No matter what profession you're in, if you have lived and breathed that profession your whole life, even if you're an accountant, when that curtain falls on that specific way of life, I think people really have to realign themselves with, I am not my job. Yeah. And that's what a lot of this is. If you're an accountant, if you're an NHL player, if you're working on the line, you make your job who you are. And that is, I think with COVID, maybe that's the best thing that has come out of COVID is people have reassessed, you know what? It's not worth it to do this anymore. Why am I going into a job that I hate? Why, I think people will now appreciate the quality of life and think about the quantity that's left and how they deal with that now. When you're talking about exercising, you're not just exercising your body and your brain, you're opening yourself up to something new that, is like foreign to some people. Some people have never, they don't play racquetball. They don't do except what their job is. And I seniors, that is the biggest fatality is, like you say, your wife Nancy is going through what now, and the answer isn't the couch, and the answer isn't your TV shows or, we're going to go to Florida, we're going to be snowbirds. See, well, whether you're sitting in Florida or you're sitting in Windsor, you're sitting, and that's, I think, the biggest detriment. The doctor can tell us a little about how detrimental being stagnant is.
Lori, before the doc comes in, I just want to say that that's one thing that we've seen in our Parkinson's program, Rocksteady. It is non-discriminatory. We have people that are doctors, teachers, architects, gardeners, stay-at-home moms. There's not a certain group of people that have chosen a certain lifestyle or a certain race or anything that those things. What it is it affects everyone, and it's a playing field where we all start off. Here's where we are. Let's accept it. And unfortunately, those that don't, they're the ones that have the roughest go in terms of the rest of their lives. If they don't accept that we're all human and we all need help, and if we come together, we can make it better for each other.
I'll jump in quick, and I everything I hear is so true. But one of the things that I see, I take the calls from the boxing gym, and when it comes to seniors and athletics, one of the things that I think we're kind of missing the point with right now, and I wish we weren't, I wish we had the time to really focus in on it more, is it is such a huge potential marketplace for not just our gym, but gyms across the country, really across the world. I probably get 5 to 10 phone calls a week from seniors that ask me, is there a seniors program at the boxing gym? Is there something we can join to do? Because people are living healthier lives, believe it or not, these days, and they want to extend their athletics. They want to try new things. And, for a guy like me, and even Josh, we're busy doing dumb things 24/7, where if we quit all the things we did and just focused on this stuff, I bet you we probably make more money and be a lot happier than our current situation, because it's such a huge marketplace. It's so many people want to try new things in their elder years. And I think a lot of the issue is that business people have not caught on to that yet. Sporting companies, you can see it if you go to, for example, a tennis club or a racquetball gym. They have a lot of golf. They have that membership where you always walk in there and you see people that are a little bit older. And they always look really healthy. They're all in good shape, and they're all walking around with big smiles on their faces. And I think that can extend to every sport. And I think it's just a potentially huge marketplace for business and with that being said, that will get more people into an athletic program older on in their lives, because that programming may not exist now, but I'll tell you, within 5 years, it will. because it's a big
But
opportunity.
Ronaldo, how do we break down the stigma? The stigma
Right.
for
Right.
people that are not feeling like they're worthy of being involved with the program, or they're afraid of that sort of thing. How do we break down that stigma?
That's easy. As it grows, as more people do it, that stigma comes down. And as more opportunity presents itself for people over the age of 55 to participate in sporting programs, that stigma will come down, because your neighbor will be, oh, you go to boxing today? Oh, you're going to tennis? Oh, you're going to play hockey? All of a sudden it becomes normalized.
There's a
Go ahead,
herd
Kevin.
mentality. You don't want to step into something that's unknown and be the outlier, and know that you're going to be judged, and know that you
Yeah.
can I keep up with these other people. But if you go with some friends, if you go with some family or something where it's a social situation as much as it is a physical situation, then
Yes.
maybe that's how we get past it as well.
Yes. That's a great point.
Doctors,
Where's the doctor on this?
I was just going to say, I wish, as a doctor who mostly sees patients over the age of 80, I wish I had more resources to help my patients sort of connect to these programs, right? Because that's often the issue, is I'm telling them to sort of get engaged in physical activity and in sports in a safe way. And I don't even know sort of where to start to help connect people. So I think, I think it's just there should be links too between the healthcare system and some of these sort of groups in the community, for sure.
Can I just tell an anecdote if you don't mind?
go ahead.
So, doctor, I worked at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center for a number of years, right next door to Mount Sinai. And so we raised funds for cancer research, and I was a publicist and doing a number of things. And we do all kinds of events. And there was one called the Weekend to Win Women's Cancers. And there was a lady who was, at that point, I think she was 100 years old. She may have been 99, whatever, named Kitty Cohen. And Kitty did the 60-kilometer walk and danced across the finish line. So I knew that there was somebody special, and especially as a publicist, knew that I could get the media interested if I could get her to tell her story. Well, she was just an absolute darling, and we became great friends. So the last time we got together, she was 104 years old. We've since lost her, sadly, but she was 104 years old, and we were having lunch together and telling stories back and forth. And then she looked at her watch all of a sudden and said, "Oh, Kevin, I gotta go." I said, "Oh, is everything okay?" She said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm teaching a dance class. You know, those old those old folks, you know, I'm trying to teach those old folks how to dance." And I said, "Wait a minute, Kitty, you're 104. She said, "Yeah, the oldest one in the class is 74. She had 30 years on the oldest person in the class."
That's
Now,
awesome.
she's an outlier as well, just because of there's not many like that. And she was a remarkable woman. But the fact is, if you keep on moving, as we've all said, Lori, you said that a couple of times as well, as you, the good doctor, did as well. If you keep moving, it's amazing. Whether that is attributable to Kitty's long life, probably genes more than anything, but it certainly didn't hurt her by any means.
No, it did not. Great story.
Love that story.
Well, let's talk about the big question that I'm sure a lot of people have now is, I'm on medication.
Yep.
All these pills, like, we come from a generation that a pill can fix anything. And I think now with the legislation in medical marijuana and all that other things, I personally think you're going to see a big dip in the pharmaceutical numbers of taking that magic pill that, sure, my hip doesn't hurt anymore, but I sleep all day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to other medicinal things that are more natural, even yoga can be an antidote instead of that pill. Doctor, how do you feel about the medical profession and pills?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you bring up an excellent point. And I mean, I won't get into all of the pills, but I will just make a very important point about sort of the sleeping pills, or the sort of sedative type pills that are very common and are increasingly prescribed to older people, because sleep issues are also more common as people age. And these medications are associated with falls, with car accidents. And I see it all the time in my clinic. I get sort of referred a patient that has some brain fog and is physically inactive and perhaps have had a couple of falls and I look at their medication list, and the first thing that pops out at me is that they're taking these what we call psychotropic medications, and maybe they're taking it for sleep, or they've been on it for 20 years, but now their body has aged. And as we age, the way that our body clears drugs changes. So that's the very first thing I do when I see patients who are like quote unquote slowing down due to age. I try to deprescribe some of those medications. That's the first step.
Have you ever, like Ronaldo and even Kevin, have you ever seen someone who is, they're on a ton of pills or whatever and start to work out and the medication will decrease and the spirit of that person comes back? Have you witnessed that through, athletics?
Well, we used to have one of our rock steady boxers used to show up after drinking a bottle of wine. So I'm not sure if that counts as medication anymore. He used to stink like wine, but no, I think, I talked to people. One of the boxers, one of our current boxers, complained about arthritis in her hands, and she was worried about putting on wraps and hitting the bags. And she says, "Well, my hands have really bad arthritis." And I asked her about how often does she use her hands, and she said it's not often at all. She says, besides cooking a meal every now and then, I don't use my hands, And I think, and that's when things start to break down, is when you stop using the things you're spent your whole life using. I think medicine is a mask. Medicine has tried to mask that and say, well, instead of, since you don't use them, we'll just give you this medicine, and maybe it'll prolong or it'll change that. But I think the best medicine is using what you have and as much as you can. That's just my opinion on it, and I think
I
works.
think you're right. That's the first thing I tell people. If you don't use it, you lose it. And obviously, for some things, medication is important, but when it comes to sort of physical activity, or when people are worried about things like arthritis, that's the first thing I say too. So you're exactly right.
So we're getting time to wrap up now. Can you each give us your ending thoughts on inspiring people, seniors, to move? Kevin?
Wow. How to wrap this whole hour up in a sentence or two is a challenge. But I think some of the key points that we made here is to keep on moving. That's a real elixir for continuing to maintain a level of health through your senior years as well. The other part too, though, is to let down the barriers, to not be too proud, whether it be to join a club, to go into a class to box, or to play adult hockey, or to play pickleball, or any of the things that we talked about here. Is you got to let down your ego a little bit and realize that you think people are going to judge you, but really they're as concerned as you are. So you just go and have fun and get what you are looking for out of that: camaraderie, and certainly the health aspect of it as well. So I'll leave it with that, if you don't mind.
And Doctor, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'll just leave it by saying, I think we've all sort of touched on the fact that physical activity and being sedentary is a huge problem. It's very common at any age, but can be more common in older persons. And I think I'll just quickly touch on the health benefits, right? So we know that the aerobic exercise in particular, moderate aerobic exercise, is associated with lots of health benefits, including your bone health, decreasing the risk of obesity, heart disease, and stroke. And it's also really good for your brain. And when there's a social engagement part of that exercise, that's an added benefit to your brain health, which is really important. So yeah, everybody go out there and get moving.
Josh and Ronaldo.
I'll start Ronaldo if you don't mind. I'm a former English teacher. I loved, Ronaldo loves Bob Dylan. I like Dylan Thomas. Rage against the dying of the light. All right. Movement is life. You got to fight. You got to move. If you don't move, you're moving towards death. And so you have to fight against the dying of the light. Rage against the dying of the light. Dylan Thomas.
Ronaldo.
I'll leave with this. We once had a boxer, God rest his soul. He passed away a few years ago. Josh and I went to his funeral. And so much of the talk that day from his family was about his time, his year and a half or 2 years at the boxing gym. And one of his daughters got up there in a packed church. And she said, "My dad loved to go to boxing. He loved it so much. And when he first started going, we said to him, 'Dad, are you sure you can do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And he could barely speak at this point of his Parkinson's. But he said to them, I'd rather die in a boxing ring than shitting and pissing on the couch at home. And I'll never forget hearing those words out of them at that funeral. Because really, what other choice do you have? And I feel the same way. Like, I wouldn't want to be sitting on the couch. That's no way to live. You know what I mean? You got to learn how to fall before you can learn how to walk. And I think that happens twice in your life, not the first time, right? I think that happens the first time when you're a kid and you have no fear as a child to learn how to walk. The fear comes later on in life. And I think it's overcoming that fear that will give you a happy ending rather than just a happy beginning. And learning that and appreciating that and accepting that is really a big part of someone's life. And I think that's certainly the way I want to go down, like Dan Marion. You know what I mean? I don't want to be stuck on the couch. So,
Well said. Well said. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to leave you with young guns out there. I had to wear the ugliest gym uniform through high school. Kevin, you can remember they were ugly. I think I'm still scarred today. So that you people could have Lululemon and Nike and Air Jordans and all those things. You're welcome. I'm Lori Baldassi. This has been a Senior View. And remember, it is mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Thank you. Production staff, Lois Rindelsbacher. This podcast was produced by Sikander Salim. Thank you.